Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we are going to re-rank all 27 existing Tier 3 characters because although Marvel Future Fight has not gotten more difficult in terms of content in the last year or so, Tier 3 and characters still remains one of the most entertaining parts of the game, also the most expensive part of the game, and so it still remains a pretty big question that gets thrown around. Should I Tier 2 this character? Should I Tier 2 that character? And so on and so forth. And basically, the way that I'm going to break this down is originally I was doing, or before, I was doing an infographic, but it was really cumbersome, time consuming thing to do. And yeah, I just want to make it a little bit more simpler and still very easy to read and still very informative. So what we basically went ahead and did, and I say we because I wasn't the only one doing it, is we ranked all of the Tier 3 characters based on a whole bunch of different criteria on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being the worst or the least usable, 5 being the best, the most universally usable, the one with, the most strengths and the fewest weaknesses. And we being myself, Cyrus, Abaddon, and Coolmax. All excellent players, all longtime players, very knowledgeable. Abaddon has a YouTube channel, Angry Chicken, which is fantastic for tons of content. You can see Beta Ray Bill there, I believe. Maybe not Beta Ray Bill. Maybe Gladiator. I know Tier 3 Starlord for sure. So lots of content, and even content that I don't have. So you should absolutely check out his channel for more of that. So yeah, I'll just go through the list here. Now this is, first of all, in case you're wondering, this sheet or this tab is available on the regular master guide. And that was another thing that a lot of people didn't like as much, is that the infographic was a separate imager link that you had to follow and find. And so a lot of people have this bookmarked or whatever. So this is just more helpful for them. Again, with all Google Docs, you cannot edit this. You have to go to File, Save Copy, and then you will have a copy of it yourself in your Google Drive, and then you can do whatever you want with it. Now this tab is the Tier 3 Guide tab, which is the second tab next to the tier list. And if you scroll down, you will find the original information that we had at the top of this tab for all the Tier 3 characters. So this is the Tier 3 stat boost, the stat totals, my sort of guesstimate on how much DPS the Tier 3 skill itself does, whether it's an iframe, whether it has iframe ignore, and then other important information about the Tier 3 skill, the character, their best uses, the CCF cost, and the running total for all Tier 3 characters in the game. If you want to Tier 3 all characters, it's just under 30,000 CCF. So that's pretty cool. And then if you scroll a little bit more, you will find those lists. Now these lists are obviously incomplete because we only go up to 21 here, and we now have 27 Tier 3s. I'm not going to update these lists. I'm probably going to delete them quite soon, these little lists here, because I think that this new list is just, head and shoulders above the old one. Now, what do we have here? So keep in mind, with all of these rankings, this is just my own opinions, also the opinions of Cyrus, Abaddon, and Coolmax. This is not necessarily something that you need to agree with. You can feel however you want to about these characters, and you can grade them differently. Also, they did a little cool thing here where it locks in, so you can scroll and you can be like, oh, which character is best, which Tier 3 is best in World Boss, which Tier 3 is best in this. It's pretty nice. And for this time and for this video only, all 27 characters fit here nicely from top to bottom without me having to do any additional formatting or shrinking. It's at 100% right now. So as soon as we get the next Tier 3, it's going to ruin that symmetry. So I just wanted to weirdly appreciate that, oddly satisfying type thing. So anywho, I decided to rank them via their PvE value without a CTP. PvE, in my opinion, would be World Boss, Alliance Battle Extreme, GBR, Squad Battle, and to a lesser extent, Shadowland. Shadowland I did not include as its own category here because Shadowland's pretty easy. Most of the time you don't really consider a character's value in Shadowland until you get to stage like 70 or 80 of Shadowland. Any Tier 3 character you have can run through any stage from 1 to 50, probably in the blink of an eye, unless it's Black Panther and you've built them very poorly. But yeah, so it kind of goes without saying. So yeah, Shadowland does not make an exclusive appearance here, unfortunately. And then we have no CTP PvP. No CTP PvP would be any game mode that's sort of player versus player oriented. So you got Timeline Battle, Alliance Conquest, Alliance Tournament, those kinds of game modes. Obviously, it wouldn't include anything like World Event or Danger Room because you're not actually using your characters yet. Hopefully, Danger Room Extreme will be a cool place where we can actually use our own characters. But anywho, I digress. I think these are really important for low spending and free-to-play players because they can assess the value of a character before they get a CTP, and they can also see the stark difference between characters in those regards. So you can see Doctor Strange here. He's a 3 without a CTP. Man, why does Cynicalex keep raving about him? Oh, turns out when you go in, assuming you can use a CTP now, obviously, he suddenly turns into a 5, right? And then you have other examples like, let's say, who's a better example? Maybe Doctor Strange is the best example, but like, for example, Spider-Man. Spider-Man in PvP without a CTP is pretty weak because he has no penetration. But then when you do give him, well, he only goes up by 1. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, maybe Captain Marvel's a better example. Captain Marvel's probably a much better example. No penetration, but she has iframe ignore. You give her a CTP of destruction, she suddenly becomes a lot better for timeline and quite a bit better for Alliance Conquest. So that's sort of how it goes. But yes, for all of the other categories, World Boss, ABX, Timeline, Conquest, GBR, Squad Battle, that's what over here. You would assume that they have the best CTP, whether that's Rage and Energy for PvE, or whether it's Regen, Greed, Authority for PvP. All of the other CTPs, you know, Judgment, Insight, Transcendence, Patience, none of those CTPs are best for any character. So they just don't even come on the map. Destruction can kind of be best for very select characters, but otherwise it's Regen and Greed above that, and probably Regen quite a bit above Greed for most characters. So yeah, that's basically the list. There's not too much to talk about individually besides some key ones that I will pick on. Like, for example, Black Panther is just ones across the board. He's just so bad. He needs a rework so badly. He is head and shoulders above anyone else in terms of how bad he is. Like, the gap between Black Panther and the next worst tier 3, which might be Ant-Man. It's kind of hard to say who it is. Like, it's just so hard to consider another character as bad as Black Panther. There's such a gigantic gap between Black Panther and anyone else. It's just absolutely bonkers. But yeah, that's something that I wanted to bring up, of course, in case the devs are watching, in case anyone at Nembarble is watching. Please rework Black Panther. Please give him a uniform. Please stop trying to milk people for the 3,300 crystal purchase. It's so embarrassing for the game, and it's just such a bad deal. And he's just such a bad character, you know. It's a real bummer. But some notable shout outs here. Black Widow, so good. Basically just ABX and Squad Battle is where she doesn't shine. Everywhere else she's a 3, 4, or a 5, and she actually hits 5. She actually hits 5 3 separate times. No CTP PvP. She's really good. She's just missing penetration, but otherwise, does she have penetration on her tier 3 skill? That's one thing I needed to double check. She does not. Okay, yeah. She's just missing penetration, but otherwise Black Widow is a very strong character in PvP because of that 4-5 combo that you can pull off. Very good in PvE, or PvP in that as well, and then PvE. You know, GBR, she has high raw damage, and then she's very, very good in World Boss. Whether you're considering the white uniform for more defense and sort of survivability, or you're considering the Black Widow uniform, which has just crazy output offensively. She's definitely hard to play. That is one thing that wasn't taken into consideration here, and I will throw that out. If you guys want another, like an extra column where I rank how difficult the character is to play with a regular proc versus a CTP of Rage for PvE content, I can definitely do that, because a character like Black Widow is definitely very high on that list for really annoying to play and difficult and I'd say a little bit more inconsistent without a CTP of Rage, because it's very hard to proc on the 5 cancellation 4 when the helicopter goes down. I would say that someone like Quicksilver is another character. Luna Snow is also very hard to play with the traditional proc, much more annoying. Winter Soldier can also be quite annoying, although he's still okay with the CTP of Energy. It can be a bit frustrating to play him with a regular proc. And there are other characters as well. Mr. Fantastic can be really hit and miss, because if the proc doesn't activate on his tier 3 skill, you're just sitting there like, he's just like Oda into nothing. So that's pretty brutal. And there are others as well, but those are the ones that jump out to me. So yeah, I made this guide. Hopefully it will help you guys out. But you definitely need to apply your own thinking to it as well. You know, just looking at the numbers and trying to find the one that has the most numbers. I think it's really more important that you first ask yourself, what kind of character are you looking for, and why, right? Are you looking for a character that can clear all world bosses or most world bosses? Then you're looking for someone that's in the world boss range that can hit the 5s, right? Because that's what that is. If a character is really only good against 1 or 2 world bosses, then they're going to drop down to a 4 or something like that. Are you looking for someone that's going to be able to do ABX for you? That's a whole nother bag, right? Are you looking for someone who's good in timeline and GBR, right? Because you're trying to look for the numbers that are going to line up together. It's actually not that many. Jean Grey is 1 here. Scarlet Witch is kind of 2. Black Widow is 3. I guess Deadpool is 4. So it's interesting. to consider those kinds of things. But I think it's definitely important, and I think the best way to use this as a guide and as a way to help you is to ask those questions to yourself, and then look at this and find someone that matches what you want. If you just get the characters that you want to tier 3, like, okay, it's Mr. Fantastic or Wolverine or Scarlet Witch or Spider-Man, and you're not really considering anything, then it's much harder to answer that question. But then once you break it down and figure out what it is that you want those characters to do, or that character that's going to be tier 3, then it's going to become very obvious that you should tier 3 Scarlet Witch, or you should tier 3 Wolverine, or whatever. You should probably never tier 3 Black Panther at this point. That kind of goes without saying. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the new tier 3 ranking and guide. This doesn't rank characters in terms of their overall value from top to bottom, like amongst each other. This just gives each of them an individual value in all of the different game modes. If you wanted a ranking of where they stand in relation to each other, you're probably just much better off looking at the tier list and taking a look at the characters as they are. And seeing which ones line up with either Omega tier or Mythic tier, because I'm pretty sure every single tier 3 is here except for the Lonely Crescent. I just noticed that. Oh, and Winter Soldier and Ant-Man and Spider-Man. Okay, so there's a few here. There's a few tier 3s that didn't make it into Mythic tier. Whoops. Anywho, let me know what you guys think. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.